Okay, so I'm just going to go over very, very basic, quick lighting and materials and textures. So you can see the default Blender setup has like a few different like workspaces. We'll look at a couple more of these. You can see they're kind of like oriented towards like different workflows, different aspects of the 3D modeling and design process. Um, let's set up a little scene and then we'll do some stuff with it. So I'm gonna delete all these defaults just so we can review setting up the scene. I'm gonna add in a Suzanne, just because it's something to just get some easy geometry. And then let's just add in a couple icospheres just to create some sort of like stuff behind Suzanne, just to kind of make the scene a little bit more interesting. So there's an icosphere. Oh, actually, one thing I'll show you guys real quick. If you have a numpad, you don't need to do this. The numpad is like the square box of numbers that some keyboards have them, some don't. Usually, if you're on a smaller laptop, you don't have them. On the Mac, you don't have them. There's a setup in the Blender interface. So if you go to Edit and go to Preferences and go to Input, if you click Emulate Numpad, this is a way to set up some key commands to set different views really easily. This is something that I use a lot, so I recommend this. So yeah, again, you go to Edit, Preferences, and go to Input, and then just emulate keypad or numpad. And what this does is if I hit 1, it goes to front. If I hit 3, it goes to right. If I hit 7, it goes to top. And those are kind of the main ones. 9 goes to bottom. And then 5 switches between perspective and orthographic. So this makes more sense on the numpad because it's like a circle, but it's still really useful. Then 2 and 4, 2 kind of like rotates around the x-axis, and 4 rotates around the z-axis, and then 6 goes the other way, so you can do like 4 and 6, and then 8 goes the other way, that way. So that's kind of useful. So that's something that I like to do. I'll use that a lot. So I'm going to make a couple spheres and just kind of put them in the background here. Oh, the other thing I was doing there, this is what I mean when I say that I'll just do stuff and not mention what I'm doing. So when you're working with a lot of geometry, an easy way to duplicate something is to Shift D. That'll just make a copy of something, and then you can move it around. And you can duplicate like anything. Okay, so I've got a little weird scene here. And so, whoops. In my scene right now, I'm in solid view. This just shows, like, the wireframe view just shows the geometry. Solid view shows the geometry, but it just has this, like, default gray material and a default sort of, like, lighting setting. But if I go to material, you'll see that it has this different sort of view that's also kind of a default, and then render. When I go to render, you can see there's nothing actually here because I don't have any lights in the scene. So in 3D, in most cases, to actually see stuff, we need light. The way that materials work is that they interact with light. And so if I'm in the rendered view, to actually be able to see this stuff, what I need to do is add a light. So I can add a light the same way I add meshes. I can go to add, or I can hit Shift A. So I'm just gonna add a light, and I'm gonna add what's called the sun. And this will just add sort of a lot of light to the whole scene. And the sun position doesn't really matter. Like you can see if I move it up and down, nothing changes. If I move it right and left, nothing changes. But the direction matters. So if I rotate it, you can see that changes things. So I'm gonna move the sun back here, and let's make it rotated towards our scene, so it'll be kind of dramatic. Something like that. Okay, the other thing that we have in 3D is a camera. This lets us set the viewpoint or the perspective. And again, in 3D, we need this because, you know, we're looking at a 3D scene. So unlike a 2D design, which has sort of like an implied point of view, in a 3D scene, we actually need to set the point of view. So I'm just going to add a camera to the scene here. I'm going to delete that. If you move this little cursor, the 3D cursor, is sort of like the entry point for the scene. If you move it by accident, you can hit Shift-C to return it. I actually don't know how I moved it, but it's back now. So now if I hit Shift-A and add a camera, you can see the camera here. And if I hit 0, that sets me to the camera view. So I can't see anything right now, but the way that I would normally position the camera in a Blender setup is I would make a new window. So I just grab the top edge of this window and drag it over like this. And then I can put one view in like front or side or top. So 1, 3, or 7. And then have my other view, and I'm gonna get rid of my extra stuff here. So I can just focus on this view. I'm gonna have my other view show what the camera sees. So you can see if I go here, and it just, wherever my mouse is hovered, that's what's gonna be edited. So if I hover over here, and I go to 1, or 3, or 7, now I can see the camera, and I can move the camera and rotate the camera. And we're gonna start to see our scene. So then I would go to like side view, move the camera up a little bit and rotate it down. And then, you know, I can sort of set up my scene this way. So when you're working in 3D, a lot of the time you'll use multiple views because we're in 3D, you know, we want to see what it's going to look like from the camera perspective, but also see the scene at the same time. Okay, so I don't really need to make this too crazy, but now we have a scene that we can actually render. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to call this monkey render scene. And again, this is just an example, but what I want to show you now is if I go to the render tab, this will actually show me what my render will be if I do a render. So if I go to render and render image, there we see this kind of like default scene. So we have our geometry, and what we see is the sort of default surface on the geometry with our basic lighting setup. So if we want to make this look more interesting, we need to, oh, and another thing that I usually turn off by default, but since this is a new setup, it didn't do this. Usually, the default is the render actually opens up this separate window. I don't really know why that is. I'm sure that's useful for somebody. But that's another thing that I usually turn off. So I forget exactly where that is, but I think it's in interface, temporary editors. Yeah, so I can say render in image editor. So that will just render right here. And there we go. Okay, so let's make this scene look a little more interesting. So the way I can do that is by adding some materials. When I want to add a material, I have to select the object, and I have to do a few things. So in the main sort of view, you can see this little ball here is our material, and you can see it doesn't have a material by default. So I have to create the material first. So I can add a new material by clicking on new. And then I can give this material name like monkey material. And then there's some default properties here. We don't have to go into too much detail here, but you know, I can change like the basic color. So let's say I want the monkey to be green. I can choose a green color. There's some other settings here. We're going to talk about this more in a few weeks when we really talk about this. But you can see now that what I mean when I'm talking about the surface. The surface determines like the color and the visual component of what the design looks like. And the surface of the material of the object also interacts with the light. So that's how we get like the ultimate thing. If we go to the sun and I change the color of the sun, like if I make it blue or red or whatever, that actually affects how the material looks. Let's reset that. Okay, so now we have a green monkey, so that's cool. So the material involves just the basic material part, which can be just a color. There's more stuff that's involved in that, but we'll go over that later. But we can also add textures. So another thing that I can do is I can go to the texture paint, and you can see here what this looks like is basically I have like the geometry of the monkey that's like spread out on a 2D surface here, and then I see the monkey over here, and I can actually just like draw a texture. So the texture is like an image that gets wrapped around the material. So the material can have a base color, but it can also have like a texture. And there's different workflows for this. Sometimes people will like make a map like this and then paint it in Photoshop or, you know, a program that they're more comfortable with. Blender has its own texture editor. It's not like, you know, the best, but it does some of the basics. The tricky part here is that if I start painting, it's not going to work at first. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that I don't have a texture over here, and then I don't have a texture over here. So Blender can be kind of tricky when you're first getting started. Sometimes things won't work right out of the box because you have to set them up. So I can go over to my texture slot and add a base color. And so this is going to let me add a new texture, and there's some defaults here. And I'm going to set the default color to, I guess I'll leave the green since that's what it is. So now that I have that texture material, you'll see it over here, and you see the monkey over here. So I can paint on it, and it'll add that part to the texture. And you can see that, you know, the way that the sort of map for the texture is a little weird. Like, you know, some of the eyes are like over here, but I can also paint on this side if I want to just like paint the whole eye. This isn't going to look that cool, but, you know, it's just an example. Okay, so I can paint this eye, and now I have this really freaky looking monkey. Let's paint this in as well. So, you know, now the material can be just one color, but I can also use a texture, which is just like a 2D image, to add different colors to it. There's a lot more complexity to that, and we'll go over that later in the semester, but that's just the basic. So now when I go back to my render, and I render a new image, now we've got a little more detail here. For today, if you want to skip this part and not think about the materials, that's fine. But if you want to work on some materials, you can do that. So yeah, that's the basic idea. If you want to add more materials to the spheres, you can do that as well. And then we can, yeah, we'll see the result of that. So a couple things I want to show you guys file-wise. Let's look at our monkey render scene. So it's only 135K. That's like fine. That's pretty good. Let's imagine that I wanted this to be in my game. You know, it's not obviously like fully done, but let's say I wanted this to be in my game. We're not going to be able to put a blend file in the game. Actually, technically you can, but we don't want to because it has extra information that we don't need. So ultimately what we're going to want to do is export a file that works specifically for the game. In Blender, the way you do that is you go to File, you go to Export, and then you have a choice of a bunch of different options. I'm going to go over the main option that we're going to want to use, which is GLB. These days, there's also USD is popular in some cases, but GLB is kind of a modern format that has very wide support and has good compression, so I like to use that. I'm going to show you guys two different versions of this. So I'm going to click on GLB. There's two different ways to do this. One is GLB. This is a binary file. All the data is crunched into one file. The other way is a GLTF. This separates our images, our textures, from our geometry data. So let's look at those and how they're different. So I'm going to make sure I'm in the right place. Yes, okay. So I'm not going to look at the settings for these. I'm just going to go first with the GLB. So I'll export that. So here's our GLB. It's 168 kilobytes. So that's in our good data zone, or it's actually a little bit above our good data zone, which is kind of crazy. But maybe I should change this to like 300 or something. Anyway, it's good enough. We don't have to worry about it too much. But with the GLB, you can see it's just one file. If you import that into another 3D software or game engine or something like that, it's going to have all of that data all crunched in together. If I export as a GLTF, so I'm going to switch this to GLTF. Now, here's my GLTF, but notice there's a couple other files in here. There's this bin file. I guess there's no materials here. Maybe that's a setting that I need to export GLTF. Oh, okay. Textures. Okay, let's actually make a new folder for this just so it's easier to see. So I'm going to call this GLTF. I'm going to go in here. And then textures, I'm going to say textures. And I'm going to say include transform data material. So you can set all these different settings. We'll look at this later, but you can actually set like, you know, what type of image you want to use and stuff like that. Image quality. Okay. Let's just export this and see what happens. Okay, so our GLTF has a bin. This is the binary for the geometry. That's 92K. So you can kind of get a sense of like, let's delete this stuff. Oh, the material is right there. I just didn't notice it. Okay. Anyway, so our GLB is 168K, and 92K of that is binary. So that's like the geometry. The GLTF is only 5K. This is like almost nothing. It's just a text file that just like has a structured, you know, representation of the scene. Just looks like that. And then the textures, here we can see our actual texture. So it actually just puts a texture by itself. And you can see that's 71K. So if we add up 71K plus 5K plus 92, that gives us 168. So that's actually exactly the same as our binary format. So you can see how, depending on how we export it, we have different amounts of control. The nice thing about this is if I decide I need to swap out that texture, I can, or edit the texture, I can do it without re-exporting my whole model. The nice thing about this is it's one file, right? So there's trade-offs to different approaches. And, you know, this also gives you a sense of kind of the size of this model. There's not a lot in this scene. So even just a small amount of geometry and material can lead to a lot of data. Okay, so this is pretty good. I'm going to save a render of this that we'll use in a little bit for our blog post. So I'm just going to, when you do a render in the image tab, if you go to save, you can actually just save out this render. So I'm going to save this as monkey render, and then you can set this, the quality and stuff. I'm going to do a JPEG just because I think it's going to be smaller. I don't really care how good quality this is. This is just for an example. So there's our monkey render. It's 66K, so that's pretty good for a JPEG. Okay, so that's what I'll post on OpenLab in a little bit. Okay, so that's it for now. Let's do a little more. Yeah.
I don't see anything in my right render tab.
Okay, I'll take a look at it. So yeah, for now we'll do a little more workshop time at like maybe 5-ish or maybe a little before. I'll talk about posting on the OpenLab.